The initial uproar by some disgruntled politicians about the conduct of 2023's election seemed to have settled as the tenure of the Buhari administration gradually winds down. Although various parties are currently in court challenging the outcome and conduct of the electoral process of the just concluded elections, some have commended the conduct of the elections, calling it one of the best Nigeria has conducted, while others have condemned the electoral process. Joining us on the show this morning to discuss the aftermath of the 2023 election, the litany of court cases around the country with various candidates challenging the elections, and the state of the nation is Senator Seidu Mohammed Dansadau, the Chairman, Board of Trustees of the National Rescue Movement, NRM. Welcome to the morning show.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be with you this morning.
Thank you, Senator Dansadau. Just to start off with your review, shall I say, your view on what happened during the elections. The presidential candidate of the NRM, Ambassador Felix Osakwe, has congratulated the president-elect and has said it was, in his view, a fair, free and fair election. I want to assume this is the position of your party as well, and I'd like you to justify your stance on the fact that this was a free and fair election and for others to accept the result that has come out of it.
Honestly speaking, I personally believe that the 2023 presidential election and the National Assembly in particular is in fact the best of presidential elections we have had in this country, at least from 1979 to date. One, in terms of the peaceful conduct. I think from 1979 to date, we have not had any presidential election that was as peaceful as this year's presidential election, devoid of the normal signature of boxes, sagre, violence, and so on and so forth. That's not to say, in fact, almost everybody is saying, apart from the incidents in Kano, there hasn't been any notable incidents of violence where lives of people were involved. That's number one. Number two, if you look at the performance of not only the four major political parties, so to say, even the smaller parties, you can see how the Nigerian voters have become more aware of their civic responsibility. That fanatical attachment to political parties, 2023 presidential election has shown that people are beginning to vote for merit. Somebody that is a staunch member of a particular party or even a leader in a political party may not vote for a candidate of his party because he doesn't believe that the candidate of his party is as good as the candidate of another political party. Number three, I hear people complain that there was no large turnout. I don't believe so. The BBS that was used has helped tremendously in carving a region, especially at the collation centers. The low vote that was witnessed during the election was, in my opinion, substantially due to the inability of political parties, electoral officials to manipulate the result at the collation centers. It has helped a lot. So the result that we had during this year's election is in fact the actual, to a large extent, you say it's actual vote that people exercise their franchise. So I think we are making progress. We are making progress.
Well, Senator, some people will disagree with you. They will say, well, that's your version of the story, but there is another side to the narrative. But I recall, I hope I'm not a victim of a case of mistaken identity, that you have always supported the Buhari administration. As chairman of the National Assembly Mosque Committee, you were against, was it Sheikh Khalid, the digital imam, as he was otherwise known, for one simple reason, that he criticized the Buhari government. Are you taking this position because you have been consistently pro-Buhari, pro-APC, even if you have other political interests?
No, I think you are getting it wrong. I've been from almost, I can say from day one, I have been a critic of Buhari's administration. And my assumption has been that I'm one of those who have been in the bad book of Buhari's administration. And because for me, Nigeria as our fatherland is my number one political party. So any government that I feel is putting in some policies that are not in the best interest of the country, I will voice it out. Not just for the purpose of criticism, but for the purpose of making amends so that the government will perform better.
All right.
Well, no, Senator, no. I don't think you dismiss it like that. Okay, tell us what exactly happened and your involvement with regard to Sheikh Khalid. And then you are with the National Rescue Movement now. The National Rescue Movement said, oh, the movement will rescue Nigeria from APC and from PDP. How did the movement fare, really? Particularly in Zamfara State.
No, okay. Yes, you are quite correct. You are quite correct. It is one thing to have a political party with its ideologies, aims and objectives, how the party wants Nigeria to be. And it is quite a different thing for Nigerians to vote for that political party. The problem of Nigerian politics is having to do more with the amount of money you have rather than the ideology, rather than the provisions of the constitution of the party, rather than the policies that the political party put in place in order to rescue Nigeria, put Nigeria in the proper path of growth and development so that it will be able to catch up with its peers in the Committee of Nations. In fact, talking about performance, in fact, I have to be frank with you, we perform very poorly, very, very poorly. Why? Because in our constitution, we said it is an offense against our party for a party member to rig election in favor of our party. This is a provision that, in fact, is good, but that many politicians will change against. It is also a provision in our party's constitution that it is an offense for a candidate to go around his campaign with thugs or with some arms and ammunition. So these are the kind of provisions we have because we believe anything illicit, God is going to curse it. And it is our opinion in the National Rescue Movement that the degeneration we are having about quality of leadership, poor service delivery. Election cycle after election cycle, we say, the last set of public officers were better than the present. It's what we have been having from to some extent 1999 to date. Why is it so? It's because most of the votes were votes that were not cast by Nigerians. People inflate figures and say somebody has won the election. So it is our belief in the NRM that God will not bless anything illicit. And that's why I say, look, we have to lay a strong and solid foundation for rescuing this country. And you can only do that if we ensure, to a large extent, respect for the rule of law in all aspects, of governance. And the government of the day should be seen to lead by example. And thus our hope has been, during the 1999 election, we had a strong hope that we may have at least one state out of the 36 states of the Federation. And if we had that one state, it would have been a model state that we believe by the 2023 general election would have added more, and probably some political parties might have emulated the policies we might have put in place in the NRM state.
All right, Senator Dansadau, thank you very much for your thoughts so far. But I just want to probe a bit further, because when you talk about the elections being peaceful, being the best election, a number of people would ask you if you saw, perhaps heard reports of the violence and the ballot snatching and the killings in some areas of the country during this election. Some people would ask your party if your party agents reported issues of the results, presidential results, not being able to be transmitted via IREV as promised by INEC. So INEC breaking their own laws. People would ask you questions around the fact that some people are challenging the process as not being free and fair. So it makes it a bit difficult for them to understand when you say that it's the best election that has been conducted. Just to clarify that, did you see them? Did you see reports like this? Did your party agents report incidents like this to you? Or did they tell you that everything was fine? Then moving forward, in terms of going forward and how to begin to rebuild and, for the task ahead of the president-elect, what would be your main thoughts around that? Because when you started the National Rescue Movement in 2018 at inauguration, you said that one of the things that have plagued Nigeria is that we don't have natural disasters. We have man-made disasters as a result of very terrible leadership. And I want to assume that you're referring to the leadership of the day, which was the APC at the time, and still the APC has won again. What's your stance on this, and how can leadership be better improved in the next government?
Well, let me first of all address the issue of box snatching and the rest of it. I didn't say that the election was 100% free and fair, but it was a significant improvement of what used to be obtained. My disappointment with us politicians is the fact that in spite of having some solid 24 consecutive years, of democracy uninterrupted, yet we have not developed the culture of accepting defeat. That is worrisome. And everybody that loses, election is rigged. Take, for example, if Labour Party will get 95% of the total vote cast, and then defeat the presidential candidate of APC in his home state, and then complain that APC has rigged election. So, from where do we start? If you look at the history of statistics of election in this country, you find that there has never been any presidential candidate, never, that scored 95% of the total vote cast, in his home state or in any other state. And here is the party now complaining. Also, the person defeated in his home state has rigged the election. So if probably Labour had won the election, they wouldn't have raised any issue of rigging the election or any technicality like I have seen you discuss with Musa Obakoba, regarding the issue of FCT. So we as politicians, we have, like the voters, are becoming more and more aware, more and more responsible, more and more fair. We should also begin to be more responsible in terms of accepting defeat, in terms of abstaining from anything that will bring violence, as much as possible abstain from rigging election, so that we'll improve in terms of producing legitimate government. Because when there is question of legitimacy in any government, then there is going to be a serious problem. So I think it is having to do more with the politicians that I must win. If I don't win, election has been rigged. If I win, it is free and fair election. We should stop this. We are making things extremely difficult for INEC. We are making things difficult for the judiciary. And we are imposing some kind of uncertainty to the Nigerian electorate and to the Nigerians in general. So therefore, more of the work needs to be done in order to improve the electoral process from the part of the Nigerian politicians. Because if you observe, INEC has tried a lot within the past say 6, 7 years in terms of introducing a lot of innovations that are capable of minimizing electoral malpractices. And in my own candid opinion, what has happened during the 2023 presidential elections has proved in categorical terms that these innovations by INEC have begun to produce some positive results.
Well, I get your point, Senator, about the need to reform the electoral process further. Not many people will argue with you over that. But the National Rescue Movement lost the opportunity, didn't get a chance to rescue Nigeria. What do you think that the president-elect and the vice president-elect and the government that we expect them to come up with should do in specific terms to rescue Nigeria? And do you think that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has the capacity to rescue Nigeria and restore hope?
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me start with the last question as to whether Bola Ahmed Tinubu has the capacity to rescue Nigeria or not. I think Senator Ndoma Eba has somehow answered that question. Going by his performance as the governor of Lagos, I think one will be left in no doubt whatsoever that he is equal to the task. Lagos is a miniature Nigeria. And Tinubu ran an all-inclusive government, appointing people in his cabinet from different parts of the country. That's number one. Number two, he had the tendency of looking for merit. He doesn't appoint people based on sentiment. He appoints people based on merit. And I think that's what has substantially helped him in the success he achieved, in the governance of Lagos. Thirdly, the objectivity with which he anointed his successor, or if you like, his successors, is also an excellent approach, rather than what majority of the former governors in Nigeria did. Let me appoint a stooge that when he is there, I will dictate what he does, and within 12 months, they fall apart. So he succeeded in mentoring people. And that's not even the only thing that interests me about the capacity of Tinubu. If you observe, most of former governors who ventured for presidential aspiration, they do it immediately after their second tenure. Bola Ahmed Tinubu didn't venture for presidential aspiration in 2007 when he finished. He only ventured for it some 15 years later. I don't think it was accidental. It was deliberate. What was he doing within all this time? One, studying the achievement and failures of federal administrations. Two, building bridges across the country. Three, making sure he gets a proper understanding of the peculiarity of developmental problems of each and every part of the country. So therefore, with all these things that must be credited to him, one can comfortably say, yes, he is equal to the task. Now, talking about what I expect him to do to rescue Nigeria, first and foremost, and most important as far as I'm concerned, is justice and fairness. Justice and fairness. When I talk about justice and fairness, I'm not talking about just political patronage. I'm not talking about appointment. Yes, it's very important. But on the issue of even budget, if you look at the nation's budget from 1999 to date, our capital budget is secured towards elitist projects that have direct bearing with ordinary Nigerians are minimal. The second thing I want him to do is to change our budget system. This budget system called envelope system that was introduced by President Olusegun Obasanjo, for me, is nothing but corruption. You just tell a ministry, your envelope is 30 billion. So they have the prerogative to just allocate the money to anywhere they want. In my opinion, in most cases, money is allocated to where it can easily be stolen. And year in, year out, this is where we have been. If he is able to change the budget system, I always give this example that politicians don't want to hear. Remember, Dr. Iben Juari military regime. Budget goes through 3 different processes, if not 4. After all ministries have done their submission to the Ministry of Finance, there will be a meeting of the Federal Executive Council. Ministry after ministry, department after department, parastatal after parastatal, defending their budget before the president in council, if you like say before the head of state, with all the ministers. After that, the Armed Forces Ruling Council will also sit on the budget. ministries, departments of government, parastatals, all also appear before the Armed Forces Ruling Council. And they hold to answer questions on the provisions of the budget. What is the state of completion of social project in your ministry? What are you providing? But here you are in a democracy where budget ought to be scrutinized more. You just put a budget of 14 trillion in the hand of one individual who is called Director of Budget or Minister of State of Finance in charge. So unless we change this, I don't think we'll make serious progress. Another thing that is very important, policies. Bola Tinubu should ensure that any policy that his government put in place has no any ethnic, regional, or religious touch. It should be projected purely on merit, based on need or based on necessity. For example, if you are doing policy on frustration, you shouldn't do it nationwide. A number of states doesn't need anything of frustration. What they require is addressing the issue of erosion. So this type of balanced, budgeting, balanced policies based on merit is what for sure is going to help his government. Another thing critical is that anything that touch anybody, any public officer, no matter how highly placed, that touches the treasury fraudulently must be brought to book, immediately. This idea that something is obvious, probably the press or some civil society organizations have brought something out that a top government functionaries has done wrong, and the government just keep mute, is not going to help anybody, and I don't think it's going to help Bola Ahmed Tinubu's government. That is critical if we want an improvement to the level of corruption. Appointments, like I said, we expect him. We expect him to do what he did in Lagos. That whoever is going to be appointed must be equal to the task, and that square pegs must be put in square holes. Because these are part of the problems we have. You take somebody to a ministry as minister, he doesn't even know where to start from. So I think if these lines of actions and these type of policies are put in place and they are diligently implemented, I think there is going to be a significant improvement in service delivery.
Okay, Senator, well, just before we go, just one small matter remaining. With the way you are chairman of the Board of Trustees of the National Rescue Movement, the way you have spoken positively about the election and also Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu, what's the next move politically for you? Are you going to jump ship from the National Rescue Movement and join the APC? Do you have any such plans? No,
not at all. I don't change. I don't change political party. I don't change political party. I started with APP. It became AMPP. For a while, in fact, I say I resigned from the AMPP, and I was not a member of any political party. And later, I thought, let me repeat, I thought Nigerians are serious about, ameliorating the socio-economic and political problems that have bedeviled this country. Then I said, look, let me look for some like minds and put in place a political party that will have the best of constitution, that will have the best of manifesto, so that we get people from across the country and see. Little do I know that that's not probably primarily what Nigerian politicians are interested, and also that's not what the Nigerian voter is interested. And that has become so categorically clear to me in 2019 when I contested for the governorship of Zamfara. Clearly voters say, yes, we know Dansadau is the best candidate, but the trouble is that he doesn't have money, he doesn't give money. So that's that. So, but let me, that's an issue that I feel is critical. I don't know whether I have 1 minute or two. That you haven't mentioned. I thought you were going to ask. I saw you with Obakoba talking about the issue of FCT. I think I would like to say very, very quickly, there are some sections of Nigerian Constitution that cannot be read in isolation of some other sections of the Constitution. And the issue of FCT is one of those sections. Number one, when the Constitution says for a candidate to be declared, he must have majority of votes. He also must have 25% in 2/3 of the state of the federation and the FCT. Number one, we have to first of all look at the spirit of the Constitution. In some instances, you don't look at just the letter. What is the spirit of the Constitution? What is the essence of making this provision? The essence of making this provision is to make sure that somebody who is elected by a small enclave or by a particular ethnic group or by a group of few states emerged as the president of the country. Now, if somebody has gotten 25% in 28 states of the federation, and he doesn't get 25% in FCT, and you are now saying he shouldn't be declared as president, the implication, the grave implication of what you are doing is that you are giving FCT veto power.
All right.
Because what you are saying is even if somebody gets 25 states, even if somebody gets 25 states in 36 states, if he doesn't win 25% in FCT, he cannot be declared the president.
Senator, I get your point.
And thirdly, Section 299 of the Constitution. So later, look at Section 299 of the Constitution.
Yeah,
and also Section C.
Yeah, that the Constitution, Section 1342 and Section 299, which says that the FCT is to be treated as if it were a state. But I get your point. Section 134 sub 2 will be one of the issues that the tribunal or the Supreme Court will determine. But just as you were speaking, somebody sent a message and said you were sacked from the National Rescue Movement last year for anti-party activities. And so I should not be surprised that you are so supportive of the APC. True or false? Briefly, because we need to go.
Of course. That's quite, of course. Of course, some people say they expelled me. I didn't want to go into that because I think I'm above that. Some people went on forgery. We had our convention on 3rd June as per the INEC guidelines and timetable. And the INEC was there. Now, some people went and forged signature of the candidate and said the legitimate candidate had resigned. And they took to INEC. We wrote to INEC that this is a forgery. We took the matter to the police. Forensic check was made. It was confirmed it was a forgery. The affidavit they made, the Commissioner of Oath was invited by the police. Commissioner of Oath confirmed that yes, it was not, they didn't administer that affidavit. It was a forgery. So, as a result of that, we had National Executive Committee meeting. The chairman and the organizing secretary of the party who did what they did was suspended from the party, and later they were expelled from the party. And the matter was taken to court, and the court affirmed the expulsion of the chairman and the organizing secretary. Yet, INEC refused to implement the court decision. Now, they had a phantom meeting to say they have expelled me from the party. So the question is, there are two court judgments that, to the effect that they have been expelled from the party. INEC is serving the papers. The most unfortunate thing, I don't want to say it here about INEC, there are certain things going on there. I'm not here to indict anybody, but all that I say, even to the INEC chairman, is that whoever does right knows he has done right. Whoever does wrong knows he has done wrong. After all, the people...
Thank you so much, Senator. Thank you, Senator.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks for explaining yourself there. We don't have enough time anymore. There are a few things that I'd like to probe a bit further, but hopefully next time you come on the show, we'll be able to speak in detail.